Always true.
We ask the questions.
What is needed in the world?
Is that going to
Guilty of tax evasion. But ask any Italian about former Prime Minister Berlusconi, and chances are they think he'll never actually go to jail. Many Italians say they want to clean up the political system. But what's actually being done? A brand new anti-corruption law adopted last week is already being criticized as a watered-down half measure. It won't even cover vote selling or money laundering. And the push to reform the electoral law? Well, that seems to be going nowhere, although the next election is only 5 months away. Party bosses are still deciding who will run for office and in which districts.
The real cancer in my country is the party system. This is not a democracy.
And then there is, of course, the financial crisis, the third largest economy in Europe, drastic cuts in public spending. Businessmen so frustrated, many of them have given up or even taken their own lives. Savings imposed by Prime Minister Monti, will they work, or is there more chaos ahead? And how will all of this impact the rest of Europe?
We have lost our heart, our ambition, our project, our vision.
Today, the Vice President of the Italian Senate, Emma Bonino, talks to Al Jazeera about her country in crisis.
Emma Bonino, thank you very much for talking to Al Jazeera.
Thank you for inviting me.
After Mario Monti's technocratic government came to power in Italy and imposed a biting austerity program, how do you rate its performance?
I think he has done the best he could under the current circumstances, not only because when he came into power in December, he inherited a situation which was near to collapse. We were really at the steps from the abyss. And also he is running a country which has not made any kind of reform in the last 20, 30 years. So, in fact, one of the issues is that apparently or theoretically he has a strong majority in parliament, but basically that is not the case, in that all political parties are just looking at the next election next April. So they are not supporting the reforms, if not, very cautiously. Every bill that comes into parliament is a sort of a Vietnam. And so I think that, on the other hand, Europe is not helping. And historically in my country, which has always been very slow, Europe has always been an engine for change and modernization. Today, you have an Italian crisis coupled with a European crisis. So the scenario is not brilliant.
But you, as Vice President of the Italian Senate, you approve of Monti's initiative, this austerity program that's got many Italians up in arms, upset about what sacrifices they've had to make.
But I was astonished, not astonished, but when he made the pension reform, which is long overdue, frankly speaking, there was no reaction in my country, no strikes, because people at the end of the day, they do understand that if your life expectancy is 85, you cannot retire at 58. Nobody can pay for you at this stage. Also, people begin to realize that my country has been living out of its own possibilities in the last 20 years, right? So there is the public opinion is divided. What is really true is that this crisis has made people who were already very fragile and poor, made them even poorer.
But let's just bring it back to Italy and the social consequences of this crisis, because they are just starting to emerge now.
Yes.
Now, the leader of La Dretta, the right in Rome, Giuliano Castellino, says that Monti, the European Central Bank, and its political supporters are making Italians commit suicide. Indeed, the number, it might be a bit harsh of a comment, but the number of suicides related to austerity suicides are on the rise in Italy.
Well, this is not so clear, and I don't want to take side, because even the number are disputed, and the reasons and why.
But dozens of businessmen, since the start of this year, dozens of businessmen have taken their own lives because they couldn't pay their workers or they've had to shut down their businesses.
Yeah, but when you get suicide because you receive a bill of 2,000 euro, maybe there is also some other problem. But I don't want to go.
Mean?
Well, you don't commit suicide if you get a bill of 2,000 euros, right? But I don't want to dispute the figures. What it's really sure is that one of the reasons is that small and medium enterprises don't get credit from the banks. And on top of that, they have to be paid by the administration for their business, for instance, that they did for the public administration, and the state doesn't pay them, if not 3 years later. The state owes to the small and medium enterprise more or less 70 billion, right? So that is a vicious circle, but it's not invented by Monti. It was exactly that 6 months ago. This catastrophe, quote unquote, cannot be invented by Monti in the last 4 months.
Right.
This is
but for you who've
little
made,
bit superficial,
but
let's say.
for you who've made social justice your political battle in your years of career, I mean, this must be very alarming to hear that every day Italians are committing suicide because they're not able to make ends meet.
Well, I think that
is this a new depression, you think? Is this similar to what we saw during the new depression in the 1920s?
Maybe.
Are we headed there?
I wasn't there, but
Yeah.
maybe. But in any case, what I do believe is that the first social justice initiative is to avoid a bankruptcy of my country. This is the first social justice initiative. And I hope we manage to do it, at least that, even if we are back to a very difficult situation even today. So we rescue the country from a bankruptcy, which is already something. And now, I don't think we can fix a country in 6 months. This is totally impossible. And particularly, you don't fix a national economy when you are so interrelated with the European economy and the European, let's say, institutions. So we have to address our specific problem, but also we have to address the crisis of Europe that is not moving into any kind of European program on growth, be it infrastructure, be it any other possibility.
So what if Italy isn't able to meet its obligations
I cannot even, I do not even want to think about it. I really, the only idea that somebody say, oh, no problem, we can leave the euro and go back to the lira.
Because now there's talk of Greece leaving the euro.
That is real irresponsible.
So it could also happen to Italy, because Italy is
But can you imagine that
in a desperate
I
situation.
even think that if somebody is unable or doesn't want to rescue Greece and let Greece get out of euro, I think it's a major and a terrible mistake. Nobody will trust the Eurozone anymore. Nobody will invest in any other Eurozone countries because, of course, investors don't like fragility or political turmoil.
But even Europeans, Emma Bonino, don't seem to trust this European project anymore. There's a lot of Euroscepticism out there, this idea of political integration. People don't believe in it anymore. For you that fought for this idea, who supported the idea of federalism and so on, this might be quite a difficult time for you, isn't it?
It's a difficult time, but simply because the political projects of Europe at a certain point stopped. We made the single currency, and we forgot every other possible integration, be it on competition, economy, fiscal, social, anything. Euro was such a success in the last 10 years that everybody was in some way anesthetized. And so we forgot, or they forgot, to continue the European project integration. And now here we are with the project which has come to a total stop. People don't like this kind of Europe, and I do agree with them. But maybe from a crisis comes also a possibility, and I do hope that this crisis can finally convince everybody that either we move towards a real political union with a treasury, with a bank, a federal bank, with a common foreign policy, with a common defense, or
sort of like a United States of Europe.
That is nothing. It's not a super state, but because it's the only thing that can preserve diversity and freedom, and can preserve quite different, let's say, locally speaking. But you put together what is important in the political arena.
Emma Bonino, let's bring it back to Italy, because there is a lot to talk about concerning Italy. Now, also of great concern right now, a consequence of this economic crisis, is the resurgence of politically inspired violence.
Yes.
We've seen a lot of attacks on tax officers and so on. Do you think we're returning to the years of 1970s, the years of lead, where political violence, dozens of officials were killed by the leftist groups?
I hope not, but I also think that these are elements that should not be underestimated. And I do really think that whoever has a responsibility, be it local, be it national, etc., should really worry about this kind of symptom. I see people saying, "Oh, we are not back to the 70s. This is just one case." And then you have another case.
But there have been several cases in
another case
in the last few months.
And I don't think if it is organized like the Red Brigades or whatsoever. But I strongly believe that we should not underestimate these kind of elements and episodes that are coming even more frequently.
You're Vice President of the Italian Senate once again. According to a recent study, Italy's 315 senators' yearly salary, including all the perks, all the advantages that come with it, is 6.8 times higher than that of average Italians. I'm talking about the advantages and so on.
Advantages or salaries?
The salary in addition with the advantages, all combined. Shouldn't Italian senators be setting the example in this time of crisis?
I think that
by agreeing to a salary reduction, perhaps?
That's what has been done, by the way.
But has it been enacted? Has it been?
But I think that what they should agree really, is to be transparent. That is exactly what it doesn't exist in my country. Everyone, everywhere, has an obligation, if you are a public figure, to put in internet your patrimony, how much you earn, what you do with that, and so on. In my country, that doesn't exist. Even on voluntary basis, out of the 300 whatever colleagues, only 40 decided to be so transparent. So the question, in my opinion, is not the amount of money. The question is the lack of transparency, how much you receive, for what reason, what kind of accountability.
But starting with a salary reduction would be a very symbolic gesture, wouldn't it?
Yeah, but it has been reduced, but I don't think we need symbolism anymore. If you compare, depend how you want to, I would have much more services in the Senate to be knowledgeable in different fields and not relying on my own only. But what I'm calling is a total transparency of our salary is connected to the salary of the judge, right? The law says that the salary of the elected people in parliament is connected to the judge. And I think that an elected person can earn like a judge. It's not such a scandal, right? But the question is that all the benefits and what they do, it's not known by the public opinion.
But beyond wage...
There is no scandal of having a salary compared to one of the judges.
But
right?
Beyond wage reduction and the transparency that you talk about, isn't there a real culture change required in Italy where public institutions are not seen as a means of personal gains, earning more wealth?
Absolutely.
But what is it going to take to achieve that culture change?
Well, it's not a... Political parties don't want so much to change. They are pretty well off like this. So, and the real point is to change. Of course, if you have a political parties, it's because you want to run a country, so you need an electoral system. And the real point in my country is the electoral system, right? In my country, the two secretaries of the two major of the parties make a list and decide who will be elected. In this case, appointed. I've been pleading in the last 30 years for the first past the post system, the Anglo-Saxon or French one, but there is no way, because this partitocrazia, that is the real cancer of my country, is unmovable, really unmovable.
And interestingly, Italy still has the highest number of parliamentarians, 945 MPs for 60 million people. That's more than the United States. What do they do?
Well, no, that's not. According with this system, I think that 30 would be 30 would be plenty enough, right? If you want a small college like in the UK, in which you are elected out of 100,000 people, so that you can have connection with your constituency, right? The number is not so different, all right? But the question is that if you don't represent your constituency, if you are simply appointed by your Secretary General of the party. If in so doing you have no autonomy, 30 is plenty enough.
Now, you once said, the radical party to which you belong once said, and this was during the Berlusconi era, before the debt crisis that eventually toppled his government, you said Italy is not a democracy
Anymore.
How would you characterize Italy today?
Well, what is democracy? Democracy is a system based on the rule of law, right? And the rule of law has to be respected, first of all, by the people who made the law, and then asking for the other people to be respectful. Now, all this doesn't exist anymore. There is not as in the last, it's not recent, it is just getting worse and worse. A trial in my country lasts 10 years. A civil one, 7 to 8. There is no predictability of the rules, so that investors don't come, and even Italians don't invest in Italy anymore. We have 67,000 people in jail, 40,000 of which are waiting for trial. So you have a pre-trial prisons. 14,000 are waiting for the first level of trial. It can be there for months and months and months. This is not a democracy. This is not a democracy when you cannot elect your persons, your representative, because it's decided by the Secretary General. It's not a democracy when accountability and transparency is nowhere to be seen from public figures. So I think, again, that the real cancer in my country is the party system.
And today there's still a democracy, a lack of democracy, because when you take a look at the government that is in place right now, it's not a government that was elected. So the democratic deficit is still there, isn't it?
No government has never been elected in my country because it's a parliamentary system.
Yeah, but I'm talking about the Monti government. It came to power without Italians necessarily having a say on who would be the prime minister.
But this is totally true, but exactly because I'm not so complaining, because I strongly believe that we were not in a democracy before. And I strongly believe that this is a benign accident on a long history of partitocracy that is just waiting to be back in April.
Should Italy wait till 2013 for elections, you think? Or
Yes.
should it be sooner?
No,
Some people say it should happen sooner.
No, I think it should be really totally irresponsible to face election now. I don't think there is any political parties willing to take the measures that are needed. On top of that, really, people tend to forget that bankruptcy is over. It's not true. I'm worried over and over again, and every day more. So I do really think that just to paralyze the country again for 3 months, running for a new election is really not serious.
Now, we've talked about Europe, and the overall picture across Europe is certainly a very gloomy one. Some commentators go as far as saying that the current economic crisis in Europe will lead to the rise of the radical right, just as it brought Adolf Hitler to power in the 1930s. Are we in a similar situation with far-right parties, gaining more influence in countries like Greece, in France? We saw it recently in the election. Are we looking at a similar situation?
I'm not sure, but I'm really extremely worried of this possibility. And I think that it's not simply enough, here we are, this is the situation. What I'm trying to do every day is to try to find a solution and a way out, exactly not to repeat a situation that we have already lived. But the symptoms, and I think, are all there.
But can the rise of the far right across Europe, can it be explained by the economic deprivation alone, or are there other underlying factors, you think?
I think that the question is multifaceted. It's not only the economic crisis. It's that nobody tried to tell to people that the world was changing and that we had, in fact, to adapt. For instance, immigration, right? Of course, nobody tried to explain that, quote unquote, we need them. It's not out of charity. It's just for demographic decline. We need them. So we need an integration policy. On the contrary, we had, of course, the anti-immigration very, very vocal, and the other serious political parties too timid and too shy to try to lead a major change in Europe due to immigration. Take my country.
But if the mainstream parties, the left or the right, if they had their own discourse on this issue of immigration, perhaps the people who are voting wouldn't be turning to the far right, would they?
This is what I'm saying.
Right, yes.
And I'm simply saying that they have been too timid, too shy, provided that they had a vision.
Do you think they had one?
Well, I don't know. But they have been really too timid and too shy to put forward the clear-cut evidence. Take immigration, right? Every single family in Italy as an immigrant, as a badante or a home worker, and etc., etc. They are many, many thousands of them illegal, right? But nobody dares to say, listen, we have to legalize these people. It's out of convenience, by the way, and the challenge is that we have to try to live in diversity and freedom. And in some way, we need them. And of course, in Italy, every family has a grandfather who was immigrants someplace in New York or whatever. So we also have we could have had the cultural, let's say, sensibility, no, to understand what's going on.
But how do you convince an Italian family?
And you have to couple rights and duties.
Right. How do you convince Emma Bonino, an Italian family that's having a very difficult time to make ends meet, that immigrants is not the source of their problems? Because they again, in times of economic crisis, they become the scapegoats. How do you explain?
But if you never talk of this something and to pretend that it's useless to talk to people because they don't understand, and you just run the country or the political discourse on fear, right? You will never create a public opinion. Public opinion is not static; it's a dynamic evolution, and also responds to to what you say and to message that you send. Right? If you don't send any message, and then the only one they get is they're stealing our women, our jobs, our whatever, people tend to believe it. But that is not true. The question is, can we seriously debate this issue, like others? But can you seriously debate? And all the data will show that nobody is stealing the Italian job simply because Italians don't want to collect tomatoes anymore, don't want to work as a homework in other families, so they're not stealing any jobs.
Right. If
they are even an asset.
You think they're an asset?
Yes.
Now, let's again, just to recap what we've been talking about. There's the economic crisis, immigration pressures on Europe, the Arab Spring and so on. Do you think... Delocalization.
Etc., etc.
Do you think that Europe can regain a leadership role in the world, the main parties in Europe? Do you think, because Europe is in a very difficult position right now, wouldn't you agree? Can it
Absolutely.
Regain a leadership role?
I don't think there is no other possibility. If not, try again and try to make use of the time of a crisis. A crisis can also be a possibility. It's not only it's a disaster, but in this disaster can also be a possibility. I don't know if Europe will be a leading actor. For me, it would be already enough. It could be one of the actors in this global world. Knowing that no one on our own, neither Germany, has the economy of scale of, frankly, sitting and debating with, I don't know, China or South Africa. Now, the economy of scale, at the end of the day, we are a market of 400 million people. More or less, not a model, but an example of how you can overcome 2 world wars and the genocide. It's the first time we have been living in peace for 50 years. And I think we have just been totally anesthetized in the last 10 years. We have lost our heart, our ambition, our project, our vision. And in so doing, you cannot fall in love with a single currency. Look, it's too much, right? You can fall in love of a project that is, let's say, providing a sort of opportunities for people, right? In a peaceful, non-violent world, and on a rule of law based and so on and so forth. But all this apparently has been lost in the last 10 years.
But are you optimistic for the future?
I'm determined. Jean Monnet said once, I have no time to ask myself if I am optimistic or pessimistic. I'm just determined because we don't have any other projects. We have to remind ourselves that our project is Europe and United Europe. There is no other project around to be seen, as far as I know.
Emma Bonino, it's been an interesting conversation. Thank you very much for talking to Al Jazeera.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.